Hey guys, so I got a request to talk about how I do my photography on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you should be. It's at Ouroboros_forge. And so yeah, so just to preface the entire video, I'm not even close to being even an amateur really with this. I've learned some stuff in my times in the Marines, like when it comes to reconnaissance and surveillance, but so I know a little bit about photography, but not enough to call myself an expert. I'm just going to simply explain kind of my own thought process behind my own photos and why I do the specific things that I do in my photos. So the first big thing would be consistency. I use the same background now. If you look at the beginning of my Instagram photos, you'll see it's just complete chaos. But now what I do is I use this foam play mat from my kids' playroom. As you can see, it has some pretty dirty spots, so I got to be pretty selective of where I take pictures. But I'll always use that background now for my final photos. And so here would be an example of this knife right here. This is a Damascus or a forged Damascus Hugin with mammoth ivory. So you can see how it looks here, like on the video. And then this is kind of like the pictures I'm about to show you are kind of what I'm going for when it comes to how I edit my photos and, you know, some of the poses. All right, so as you can see, you know, those photos are very different from what you're seeing in this shot right here, right? And there's reasons for that, and we'll go over that. So first and foremost, you saw the background. Also, I always have a piece of organic material in there, whether it be wood or fur. And in one case, I rarely do that because I try to, like I said, keep it consistent and stay with that that black foam. And also one of the cool things too, I chose this because it has little pyramids on there. I can't remember if I mentioned that earlier, but it reflects light in a really cool way, and I think gives the photo more depth. And so yeah, so consistency, just human psychology. People don't like chaos, and like if you think about like you being in a very dirty room, like where shit's everywhere, that can like cause unconscious stress, right? You don't even know why you feel a little bit anxious, but it's because of the clutter in the room. And so I kind of try to bring that mindset to my photos. I try to be consistent so there's a sense of predictability with people that come to my page. And I try not to have too much in the pictures, just the knife and then a you know, a piece of organic material that I'm like resting the knife on. And then I'll just go over some of the angles that I'll take, which is the next thing. So first is consistency. Second thing is going to be posing. All right, so now we need to take pictures of our knife at different angles. And the reason why we're doing that, or at least the way that I think about it, is I want to give, you know, either a potential client or, you know, the client that ordered the specific knife that I'm showing, I want to give them almost like a small tour, you know, of the knife as if they were holding it. And so what I like doing is I like to, you know, show different angles. So a lot of people that I've seen on Instagram will just set their knife down flat on whatever their consistent background is, because the whole consistency in your background is not like a new thing. Vorn Knives is a really good example of that. His photography is absolutely brutal and awesome. But he lays his piece down just flat. And I don't really like that. I feel like it's a little bit too two-dimensional. And so what I like to do is I like to take that organic piece of material, which in this case is just some driftwood, and I'll set the knife down on it. And the reason why I do that is I feel like it gives extra depth to the picture, because there's different layers, right? There's the background, there's the organic material, and then the third layer would be the knife. That's going to create shadows in areas that, like I said, I think it's just going to make the photo more interesting. So I'll take one like this, take one like that. Now what I want to do is if there's specific details that I want to show, that's when I start looking at ways to show those details on top of other ones. So killing two birds with one stone. And what I mean by that is there are specific things about like custom knives that if I get from another maker, or even from like a production company, that I'll check just to see what the quality of their production process or the quality of the maker is. And one of those things is going to be the how symmetrical is the plunge line. Is the edge thickness the same? Because there are ways to tell. With that secondary bevel. Like, is the blade straight, right? If you look at a blade down from the back to the front, there are times where it'll appear straight, but if you look at it from front to the back, you'll see more, and don't ask me why, I just know that this is how it works. I learned this from Jason Knight, and it completely changed everything when it came to knife making for me. But looking at it from front to back, you will see even the slightest bit of warpage. So that's another thing that I like to take a picture of. So first, you have the flats like we already discussed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of it upside down so you can see, and this is where I was saying killing two birds with one stone. I'm going to take an angle, and this is kind of explaining my theory behind why I take specific angles and not just a straight down of the spine, right, of the lower portion of the spine and plunge lines. If I take a picture from back here into the plunge lines, I'm showing not only are my bevels even, right, to a single point, the plunge lines are even, and also that the tang is straight to the center line of the edge, if that makes sense. And also, I tend to taper my tangs a lot because I really like the weight it takes off of knives, and I really love the aesthetic. So I like to show that as well within my photos. Same thing when it comes to getting a top view. I'm going to typically take it from the front towards the back. Sometimes I'll take it from the back to the front, but I always like to include some sort of picture coming from the front, either at an angle or straight down it, so you can see that it's straight on top of other details, right? So there's tons of detail in this knife. Instagram only allows you 10 pictures, and a lot of people's attention span don't go for 10 pictures, right? So you don't have to take it, but I encourage you to take as many photos as you can. If there is a client, you don't want to lose a client because you didn't give enough detail, if that makes sense. So we got the two flats, you got the two portions like showing the straightness and the spine and the plunge lines, their symmetry, as well as showing the edge. The other thing now is going into small details like aspects of the knife that I like, or that you like, right? So it would be the swedge. I love swedges on knives, which is why you see them on like practically all my knives. So I always like to show an interesting angle of the swedge, and this is where, like I said, I'll get that angular shot from like the front. So I'm seeing the swedge, I'm seeing the handle material. Like now I'm showing also the fit up of the front of the handle material, that's showing that there's no gap. So there's a bunch of little details that I'm showing in one shot. And you have to make the most of each shot because, like I said, you're only allowed so many photos per post. All right, so far we went over consistency and the posing. Now talking about the light diffusion. Going outside and just taking photos in raw sunlight is just going to be too harsh because of the reflective materials, especially if you take your handles to a high finish like I do. You can see it right there. It's reflecting light like crazy, and same with the steel itself. So being in too harsh a sunlight, what it's going to do is it's going to white out some of these areas, right? Because of the sheen. And the interesting thing about photography, and this is where some of that like military knowledge comes in, is if there's a portion of the photo that's completely white, like it's just too shiny, there's no data there. So if it's too bright, you can't take or bring detail out. If it's too dark, you can brighten it. Then you deal with grain and stuff like that after that. But for the most part, it's better to have a darker photo than it is a lighter photo. So what I'll do is I ensure that I have light coming through a window because that's diffusing it. And if it's overcast, that's even better. But I don't always have that, but I always make sure it's at least coming through a window, which where you saw me have earlier or just a second ago with that pad and showing you the poses. That's where I take my photos with my phone from where I'm standing right now with my tripod. And there's a skylight right above where I take the pictures from. So I get that nice diffused light. Sometimes the light is a little bit too intense still, and like say this is like sitting right here, I will literally take my hand and create a shadow over wherever it is that I need it to be to lower the light and show more detail. Even if my hand is in the photo, as long as it's not blocking the knife, obviously, it's still good because I can crop my hand out and then I have darkness where I need it. So that, because typically if you can see the handle really well, the blade is most likely going to be too bright and causing too much reflection. So a lot of the times when I do have to make a shadow, it's typically over the blade. All right, now we're going to go over editing, right? Editing is not to make your pictures look better. There are some makers out there, and this is why like buying off the internet can be kind of shady. Because there are makers out there that will use editing software to hide flaws in their knives, or they'll just only take straight from above photos because they have like gaps or something that they don't want to show. So I really don't like that, that's another reason why I take lots of different angles, because I want to show my craftsmanship to someone that may want to buy it. And I don't want to be falsely advertising to where someone's like, oh, that looks like a picture perfect knife. They pay me like hard-earned money for it, and then they finally get the knife and they're like, holy shit, this thing is absolute trash. But anyways, back to the editing. Editing is not for making your picture look better. It's simply to represent reality as it actually is, if that makes sense. Because the phone itself is limited to its hardware and software, right? So it's limited to its capabilities. It's not able to capture reality like we are able to perceive it. So that's what you're using the editing software to do, is to represent reality the way that you see it. And you can also use this to enhance the theme of your page, right? So like I even have a black shirt on, black hat. I like dark things, so my theme tends to be a lot on the darker side. And as you saw in those previous photos, I like to bring out a lot of those shadows. And a lot of my blades are black or have lots of black in it. And I like to bring out those blacks because, in real life, the blacks in my blades are pretty black. They're pretty dark. But some of that sheen sometimes gets in the way of that and kind of dulls out some of those darker colors. So I try to bring those back out. And like I said, it also enhances that theme that I have going on, that consistency, for, my Instagram page. The editing software that I use is Lightroom, and I highly recommend it. Unfortunately, I think Lightroom, my wife is the one that got it, and I just benefit from it. But I'm pretty sure we have to pay monthly for that. But I use it all the time. So if you make lots of knives, or just like taking photos in general, it's 100% worth it. And I just use the mobile version. I just do everything on my phone, and it's awesome. It only takes me a couple minutes. It's extremely user-friendly, and I'm able to copy my settings. So because the diffused light in the room that I take it in or take my pictures in, it's always different. So I always have to create essentially a different preset for each time I'm taking photos. The nice thing is once I edit one picture the way I like it, I can save all those adjustments that I've made and apply it to all the pictures that I took. So it's the same every time. So it's very, very consistent when you're looking through the photos. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. So just to wrap it up, we went over the consistency, right? So having that consistent background, having an item or something within your picture. I choose something organic, doesn't have to be, but something that's going to add some sort of an extra layer to the photo, but you don't want too much in the photo. I've seen people have stuff where it's just shit all over the place and it just takes away from what the focus should be. So just something in the photo that adds another layer, and then having interesting posing or interesting angles that you're taking pictures of the knife that are killing multiple birds with one stone, right? So you're showing different aspects of the knife within a single photo. And then having diffused light, making sure that you're creating shadows where they need to be, so that because it's better to have a darker photo than a lighter photo, and then using photo editing software to accurately portray how it looks in reality, and as well as enhancing the feel or the theme that you have on your page. So hopefully that answers your question, or your questions about that. If you have any further questions or want more detail on any portion of that of this video, just hit me up in the comments, or you can message me at Ouroboros_forge on Instagram, and then just say, hey, in reference to your photography YouTube thing, this is my question, and I'll answer it. Cool, thanks.